Hi, everyone, and welcome to another 20-minute power play. I always look forward to filming these in the first week of every month. I'm Sam, I'm head analyst at Crypto Consulting Institute. We have so much exciting stuff going on within the cryptocurrency market sphere. We're seeing a lot of global markets and macro scenarios, so events on the big picture are starting to really unfold. We've got energy crises. We're seeing in the US the debt ceiling. We're also hearing speculation that they might actually mint a $1 trillion platinum coin to avoid the default of their own government and their financial system. I mean, we are seeing some crazy things. It's something we look at much more in depth with our advanced clients in the mastermind group. I might share a little bit with you today, but I don't want to get too in the weeds with that. I want to keep it very basic to show you what we're seeing in terms of the growth of the market and some key pieces of news of what we see each week. Because we do want to keep this in 20 minutes, so it's nice and bite-sized. We could just go share screen here. I'll bring up something that I always feel is just super, super important when looking at these markets, and that is sentiment. These are heavily sentiment-driven markets currently. Bitcoin and crypto are slowly getting institutionalized, meaning bigger and bigger companies, funds, you name it, are starting to buy these currencies, lock them away for much longer periods of time. They're holding much larger amounts. Over time, the volatility will decrease, and a lot of that high movements and sharp rises and falls of, say, retail investors, just say like you and me on the street, panic selling, panic buying, all that will slowly diminish. That effect of those sells and buys on the market will slowly diminish, and the larger holders and players will have much more of a say in how the market moves. But currently, sentiment really, really drives this. Now, you could also make the argument that currently stocks are heavily manipulated by sentiment because of the overinflated nature that they are currently. But if we're having a look at crypto here, the Crypto Fear and Greed Index is just such a valuable indicator to gauge where we might be seeing a bottom or a top in price action. Now, currently we're at 68, but if you look at yesterday, we're 54, and last week we were at 24. So extreme fear. If you ever see extreme fear or extreme greed on the Fear and Greed Index, I would start to pay attention that we could have a reversal fairly soon. Now, price action can stay and oscillate in these extreme areas for a little while. So they are just very good indicators on when sentiment has bottomed. So when everyone's saying, oh, this is dead, it's going to zero, I'm going to sell here. Or a lot of people have secretly or silently panic sold, offloading their position. So that's kind of the thinking you want to get into. The maximum point of financial opportunities on the market is going sideways or moving down. So you really need to change the mindset of buying this market in a peak state. I guarantee it, everyone that you hear, when Bitcoin does make new highs, when it breaks through 65,000 eventually, let's say in the next few months, that's my opinion and a lot of others. When it does, you will hear it from everyone in your circles. Like, have you heard of Bitcoin? It's gone up again. I thought it was dead at 30,000. You know, it was going down not long ago. That's when a lot of people will panic buy. They'll move into the market at a peak state. And while there might be a fair amount of upside left in Bitcoin and altcoins by that point, you're not really entering the market in a very smart frame of mind or in a very positive action in terms of your strategy. You really need to analyze that and just look at how you're entering this market and approaching it. But if we get back to the Fear and Greed Index, as you can see, we've just sprung back from the extremes, which is something we often see. But if we pop on over to the max, just want to have a quick look at the extreme concentration. So as an example of what I've just been talking about, when we were down at that $30,000 level, when we're seeing tweets, we're hearing the mainstream media come out, oh, look, Bitcoin's done, it's heading to a bear market, it's going down to 20K, maybe even lower. That was when we were in this extreme fear in the market. You know, anything below 30, 20 on that chart and bar, and you can see the concentration is quite heavy. This was one of the on record, the most heavily concentrated areas of panic and fear we've ever seen in the market. This gave me great confidence when you pair it up with the on-chain fundamentals, so all the data that we're getting, and also the technical situation. Felt very confident that we were seeing a bottom there at 30K. Now, if you can see here, we had a bounce up to 50K recently, and you can see how the greed started to really tick up. Now, if you pair that with the on-chain and the technicals, you could start to create a real bullish case. But then we have a lot of macro issues, so high level global events, the Evergrande situation in China, where the largest property developer pretty much in the world is defaulting. That caused a lot of fear and panic in traditional markets. And lately, crypto, well, for a long time, really, crypto and Bitcoin have been tightly correlated to the fortunes of traditional finance. If it's being stress tested in traditional markets, then Bitcoin and crypto will react because it is a risky asset class. People will pull out their capital for a rainy day and move it into the safe sort of areas, which we can look at US dollars and gold at another point. But that's where the money tends to gravitate towards in moments of stress. However, that correlation recently has started to break, which is super exciting. We'll get into that in a second when we look at the charts. But as you can see, we've bounced back up. We actually re-entered these extreme fear areas, as we pointed out just there a few weeks ago. So again, that was a point where you could look at another bottoming in the market. And that's when we're around 40K psychological support. So the fear and greed is such a valuable metric to look at. Let's pivot over to the charts. Just want to show you what we're looking at now. So Bitcoin, for me, is looking really, really nice here. And the way you can just look at that at a basic level is just do horizontal resistance levels. So if we have a look back at 30,000, again, we say bang, 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 bang. We just kept running into it and couldn't breach it. We did get under it for a little while, but the on-chain situation, if you're au fait with that, you're seeing the amount of Bitcoin on exchanges compared with, so the supply and demand side of things, you could see that the demand was far exceeding the supply of Bitcoin, and eventually there's going to be a supply shock to the upside. And if you pair up, the sentiment was in the bottom, it was in the lower areas of the extremes. And also we were at a key psychological pivot. We'd been down for a very long time. We had the bounce up, and we've been pretty much in an uptrend since then, apart from this last little area here where we went above 50,000 for a little while. Now we've gone back into this almost like reaccumulation or accumulation area where the market just needed to sort itself out with a lot of risk in the air in traditional finance. So we're back into this area here. You can plot this and you can see we fell into this descending triangle. We really wanted to start to see movement above this trend line. So you can see we had a touch here, we had another touch here. So you can see the price action is like a bouncing ball getting weaker each time until we finally burst out of it. Now, this 40K level is acting incredibly like the 30K level. We're talking about that with our clients for the last few months, just to say that you need to watch this because 30K is a mirror of 40K at the moment. Slightly different, of course, but in terms of the technicals and on-chain situation, they were almost identical. So a lot of people were calling for much lower prices down to 30,000 after this rejection at 50K, but it's just not in reality. When you have all the puzzle pieces and you start to put them together, you can start to frame a fairly good investment thesis of where Bitcoin is going to go. Now, we're not day traders, we're long-term investors here. You can look at day trading this, but it is a highly volatile market, and generally we find you just get chopped up. All your capital will just slowly get whittled away because you're chasing moves and looking at all that. But if you just invest in this market for the long term, it can be incredibly profitable. When you see the signs that we are pointing out here, you can see the 100 moving average was a key point of resistance, and it was confluent with 40,000. You can see the price action just did not want to breach down here. Now, a lot of people were expecting like 30,000 would have a little bounce down, where we would see a lot of, say, short sellers, so people betting against the move, would be trapped, and then the market would reverse, but it reversed anyway. And that is really surprising because we saw, again, traditional markets, when they're stress tested, Bitcoin and crypto tend to follow, and they tend to follow hard to the downside. However, as stocks were getting, let's say, obliterated over this past week, due to so much risk hanging in the air with the US debt ceiling, Evergrande, energy crisis as well, and supply shock issues, Bitcoin has risen about 30%. So you can see there's about 26, got up to about 27% at its height. And we got above 50,000 again. This all the while was happening when the dollar was rising as well. So those are correlations that don't generally break. And when you see those correlations break, then we can start to wonder whether Bitcoin is finally going to have a bit of a decoupling and go on a bit of a run. We know, according to history, according to Bitcoin previous historical performance, that October rather, incredible months for gains in Bitcoin and crypto. That is within bull markets. So you have to keep that in mind, that we have history to suggest that Q4 of bull markets are incredibly positive for crypto and Bitcoin. September historically was always a sideways month or a bit of a down month. we did see, you know, we saw upside and we saw downside. So that made total sense. And it actually mirrored the historical performance quite well. And now Bitcoin's starting its run. So if we are going to see some of these crazy valuations, with a lot of people are suspecting, so $100,000 plus, especially in Bitcoin, you would want to start sort of now in Q4, and it has started with a bang. So just keep an eye on that. We've also seen a breakout of the RSI momentum chart. So this was a bit of a crude trend line, but you get the idea that the momentum of bulls was waning constantly with the move. But then we've had a break. We've had a renewed momentum push from buyers through that key area. So Bitcoin is looking really great here. It's burst up through the 50,000 and it's now retesting 51,000. So if we find support here, I think this market just goes higher, and next resistance level is at around about 60,000. But yeah, I'll leave that up to you, and we'll leave that up to the markets on whether we do get spooked by a big event in traditional markets. But so far, Bitcoin is weathering the storm better than any asset on the planet right now, and I guarantee you that is going to be drawing a lot of eyeballs. There's a lot of positives coming out for Bitcoin in the next few months in terms of the global scene. So we just pivot over here, just some news that's happening. Now, I wrote this earlier today to our clients, political realities and pressure is now coming to bear. What is bad for China is good for the US. They are going to ban Bitcoin, and crypto argument gets weaker every day. And this is on the back of the Fed chair and now also the SEC chief saying that the US won't ban cryptocurrencies. This is huge. There's a lot of people out there with a lot of money still on the sidelines, unsure whether the cryptocurrency market and Bitcoin will get banned. The entrenchment in the US government is only growing. We are seeing an incredibly powerful crypto lobby starting to grow. They actually stalled the $1 trillion infrastructure bill last month because there was a crypto provision added last minute, and the bill got pretty much roadblocked right up until the gate. So it is growing. Entrenchment is growing. Crypto lobby is growing, and eventually it is going to become political suicide, because now a certain percentage, which is quite large in the US, now owns or dabbles in cryptocurrency. And if they start to really crack down on these markets, then a lot of people are going to lose money, and that is not what you want to be doing if you're a politician, cracking down on your constituents' assets. Now, just this line here, what is bad for China is good for the US. China is unprecedented in its attacks against crypto and Bitcoin. They've banned it for the, let's say, the 11,000th time. They've banned Bitcoin mining. Now they've banned Bitcoin transactions within China as well. They're going down their own path because they're releasing their digital yuan very soon, which is a little bit dystopian when you look into it, because it's programmable. They can decide how long the currency can be valid for. They can also decide programming what you need to be using it on. So if you have a bad social credit score, which they do use in China, you won't be able to buy what you want to buy at certain points. It's very dystopian. It takes away privacy. We won't get into that too much, but what I think is really important here is the politicians of the United States, they're very conscious of China is currently their geopolitical adversary. And if they can get a leg up and an advantage, if China thinks something is bad, the US is going to think it's good. And when you see the economic benefits from Bitcoin and crypto in the US, it is a no-brainer. This market is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Just quickly as well, I want to jump back because I just remembered I wanted to show you where I see the next, let's say, altcoin moment, the area where altcoins are really going to boom. Now, you can look at Bitcoin dominance charts for this, but I want to look at another metric here, and that's the Ethereum to Bitcoin chart. So how much Ethereum you can buy, how much Bitcoin you can buy with Ethereum. When it gets above key points in this market, we tend to see expansions in all the altcoins underneath or built on Ethereum. So we see a lot of capital inflows when this happens. And we see here we had a, let's say, alt season where altcoins really blossomed and Bitcoin did its thing, then altcoins rose and gained exponentially. And that was when this previous high was taken out. So you see, once we take this high, we expand, we do a leg up. Now we're in this oscillation period, you can say an accumulation area, market's working things out. When we get above this previous high up here, this is when the Q4 alt season, let's say bull market, really gets going, and it's going to be explosive. It's going to take a lot of people by surprise. So I'm going to say 0.08 when Ethereum can buy 0.08 Bitcoin. That is when the capital really starts to romp into altcoins. So keep an eye on that. Okay, here's some data just to give you a bit of picture of what I mean by on-chain and what's underneath the market. So here's the balance of Bitcoin on all exchanges. Now we're seeing price rising while the balance of Bitcoin on exchanges is dropping. Now that is just economics 101. Supply is being bought and shoveled off exchanges into cold wallets, cold storage, locked away for the long term. We're seeing a lot of data suggesting that the liquid supply, so the supply that's on exchanges, which is highly liquid, is moving into a liquid storage. So this has moved into wallets that really don't transact too often. So we consider that a liquid because we don't expect those wallets to move that crypto back into circulation. So that is really, really important to see, that we are really powering towards another supply shock, which we saw at 30,000. But the flip side of that is we're at 50,000. So if the next supply shock moved us $20,000 up, where is the next supply shock going to take us? And I think it's going to take us to our next all-time high. All right, this was a great tweet here. Never in the history of Bitcoin Network has this large of a percentage of the circulating supply, 85.25% being held for over 3 months. Supply squeeze underway. Again, this is exactly what we're talking about. This is basically diamond hands or holders. Investors are all expecting and thinking that higher prices are coming. So people are just holding onto their Bitcoin for longer and longer and longer, reducing the supply on the market, and of course, marking up the price. So this is where we can expect a big Q4 because of all these data metrics that are showing us that this is happening. And look, we go into this in a lot more detail in our monthly newsletter, which we released last month. It's been a huge success. We cover a lot of these metrics to keep you up to date each month. We'll evaluate 2 projects each month as well, give you buy and sell levels for all the cryptos that we find are pertinent at the moment, that have a really good runway and a good base and foundation. So definitely check that out when you can. And just in general, we're seeing corporates and funds come in unprecedented numbers and buying Bitcoin for their balance sheets. We haven't heard a heck of a lot since, say, Tesla made their big announcement, but that's because they are very known and flashy and would love to come out and say it. They're very technologically driven. They're very savvy with their socials, but there's been a lot of companies, and I guarantee this, that have been buying, and we've been seeing the movements on chain, but haven't released that they have bought it yet. And this is just a nice little teaser, I guess you could say. Never say never. Pepsi chief financial officer on adding Bitcoin to cash balances. We are seeing corporates talk about this daily, and especially in the wake of El Salvador. Every company that is in El Salvador now has to accept Bitcoin through their POSs. They have to accept it and exchange for US dollars if they want, but some of them will actually realize that it saves them costs, saves them on the remittances. So all these big companies will have to have a clue in on how to receive and transact Bitcoin at some point now anyway. So we're talking McDonald's, we're talking Pepsi, we're talking Wendy's, Costco. Every big department store now accepts Bitcoin in El Salvador. So they all have the capacity. Who knows when it is going to happen? A lot of these companies will start adding to their balance sheets because they have a huge amount of US dollars sitting on there, and it's like a melting ice cube. It's losing purchasing power every single year. Inflation's taking over. They're not getting the kinds of yields they're looking for in, say, savings accounts or bond yields, all that. It's just not beating inflation. So their US dollars sitting there, their reserves are melting ice cubes, while Bitcoin is sitting there appreciating at 155% the last time I looked per year over its lifespan. It doesn't take Einstein to realize that some of this money will start to flood into the crypto and Bitcoin markets. All right, now to El Salvador. So again, they made a Bitcoin legal tender last month, and it's just a bit of an update on how it's going. Now, there's a lot of mainstream media FUD saying it's not going well, but I can assure you it is going very, very well. So the president of El Salvador is reporting that 3 million citizens are using the nation's Bitcoin wallet, Chivo. Now, we can check all of this on chain. So it doesn't matter, if people say, oh, the president's probably lying, but we can see all the action, we can see all the transactions. This is the great thing about Bitcoin and the digital distributed ledger. It's open source. You can have a look at all this data. So 50% of the country's population now has interactions with a Bitcoin wallet. And when you consider that the reason why they brought this in was remittance fees and also how many of their citizens were unbanked, 70% of El Salvadorians do not have a bank account. So this is giving them access to an open source monetary network that they can actually use and also at the same time save money on. There's been also incredible drives in subsidies as well. You can get, I think it's 20 cents off per gallon when they're filling up at petrol stations if they pay in Bitcoin now. it's really doing well, and we're seeing the adoption really crank up. All the Bitcoin that El Salvador bought now is now in the green as well. So they're now making a profit. Now, this is also in regards to El Salvador, my last point is El Salvador as well, just to show you how adoption of sovereign nations is going. So El Salvador uses Bitcoin, but on the Lightning Network. So you have the base layer of Bitcoin, which is basically what all the large investors use. Doesn't get transactioned too much. It's a bit slow. It can be expensive as well. So this is another layer built on top of that original Bitcoin network called the Lightning Network, and it makes payments instantaneous and, quite frankly, pretty much free. I mean, it's decimal points. And you can see here the growth of the Lightning Network in terms of how much Bitcoin is now moving through it. And I can guarantee you this is pretty much all from El Salvador, if not elsewhere in the world that's starting to adopt Lightning. It's going through the roof. The capacity of Litecoin is just incredible. Litecoin, I should say, Lightning Network. Maybe that was a Freudian slip. Maybe there, but yeah, the Lightning Network is powering away, and it's drawing a lot of eyeballs on how successful Lightning is, and it's putting Western Union and other remittance services to the absolute sword. I think they will be absolutely sweating right now. And here, lastly, on El Salvador, this is how a country can quite cleverly utilize geothermal energy or sustainable energy that might have underutilized in their currently to create money or monetize it. So El Salvador has been using volcanic energy, and they've just recently started mining Bitcoin with it. So here we go. El Salvador has mined X amount of Bitcoin, or about $269 with power harnessed from a volcano. It's in a first for the country. So this has been done in Iceland as well as Canada as well, but this is just incredible. And I know 269 doesn't sound too big, but they literally just started when they brought the systems online. So they're going to be mining Bitcoin through the volcano. I love saying volcano. You say geothermal energy, but volcano sounds better. What they'll be doing as well is releasing volcano bonds. So they'll be releasing bonds pegged to the profits that they are making from the Bitcoin mining and then selling it. So this could be a whole new revenue stream, and I can almost guarantee it will be incredibly popular. So investors can invest directly in Bitcoin sustainable mining through El Salvador, and this will power the El Salvadorian economy to another level. So I think everything is pointing upwards right now. It's getting very, very exciting in terms of overall global adoption. You can look at the short-term price and be like, oh, wow, this is going up. It's looking really, really great. You can also get really spooked when it goes down really, really fast. But I think if you zoom out and have a really broad view of where this is going, this really is a bit of a hockey stick type adoption, similar to the dot-com boom. We are going to have, yes, big troughs and heights, but overall, over the years, it is continuing to grow year upon year. So keep your eyes peeled to what we're doing here at CCI. It's really exciting. I would get in on our newsletter, which is providing institutionalized analysis every single month. And we're really excited with the content that we are producing there. So yeah, have a look at that. Apart from all that, stay tuned to our next 20-minute power play and all the content we are putting into the groups, because it's just going to increase. The popularity of cryptocurrencies right now is pretty much at an all-time high with interest in NFTs and DeFi. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed this 20-minute power play. Hopefully it doesn't run over 20 minutes too long, but as always, there's just so much content, so many things to talk about. I wish you all the best. Hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll catch you again for next time. Bye.